Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking here in my bedroom in the great state of Kansas. And today's video, I'm going to be talking about the year 1976 and kind of the music that came out that year and musical events that are associated with that. And yeah, I talk about the debut groups that came out and the Grammy Award winners and the big bestsellers and all that. Anyway, so we're just kind of cover what happened in music in 1976, which is now 50 years ago. So we're talking about 50 years now since this all came about. So first thing I like to do, I think last time, is I kind of wrote down kind of the albums that are worth mentioning that came out this year that either were big seller at the time, or they might be albums that I personally really like, or I know my friends really like, and so they're probably ones worth checking out. If you're gonna check albums out from this year, these are the ones that are either critically acclaimed or ones I like myself. So we got Station to Station by David Bowie, a very big David Bowie fan. I'm not a big David Bowie fan myself, sorry, a big David Bowie album, but I know it's one of his most popular albums there. We got Starland Vocal Band by Starland Vocal Band, very interesting kind of album. It has one huge hit song on it, Afternoon Delight, which is interesting song lyrically, a lot of entendres, and man, great harmonies. It's really the only hit they had. This album was like a number one album, I think, for them, or that song was a number one song for them, and it was the only hit they ever had. But it made this album, which I've heard the album. It's not great. It's like okay. It's definitely everything's on that one song. They basically wrote Afternoon Delight, the lead singer of this band. I forget his name right now, but he wrote that song, and then they kind of made the album around that one song and made the band around that one song. Basically, him and his wife, and then two other people kind of joined in. So they had a kind of almost a Mamas and Papas type feel to it. And the husband and wife team, which I'm forgetting the name off the top of my head, also wrote some big hits for John Denver, including Country Roads. Anyway, so it's a very interesting story there. We have Trick of the Tail by Genesis, a very good Genesis album. This is the first one where Phil Collins takes over as lead singer. Peter Gabriel leaves the group. So they promote the drummer, Phil Collins, the lead singer, which does a pretty good job here. Ripples, such a great song off the album. So we have Taking It to the Streets by the Doobie Brothers. Of course, that title song, great Doobie Brothers song, decent album. Wings at the Speed of Sound by Wings, very good album. Has one of my favorite Wings songs, Silly Love Songs. Oh my gosh, what an amazing song. Has another hit song on there as well. I'm forgetting on top of my head, but has like two big hits on that album, and overall good album there. We have 2112 by Rush, a very popular album by Rush fans. Definitely in their prog rock era. This is the kind of album that helped them, because their first, I think might be their third album or something like that. Their first couple albums didn't really sell very well, and the record company was about to drop them if they didn't come up with like an album that would sell. And instead of making a more commercially album, a more mainstream album that would sell, they come up with this 2112 idea, kind of this futuristic idea, which is this first side is all just one 20-minute song, basically. And so they kind of doubled down on the prog rock, and yeah, it did well enough that they kept going and made some really great albums later on. I'm not a big fan of the album, but I know a lot of my Rush fans are. I'd say my Rush friends are. We have the Ramones by the Ramones, a groundbreaking album for kind of punk rock at the time. Rocks by Aerosmith, a decent Aerosmith album, not too bad there. We have Turnstiles by Billy Joel. This was kind of the first album that really kind of got Billy Joel started, it feels like, where he was really coming into his own, I feel like. He had his own musicians from New York. He got to pick his own kind of band at that time. Of course, a big song off of that was New York State of Mind, which was really big for him. We got Agents of Fortune by Blue Oyster Cult. I forget if that's the big one with the big song on it, but I heard like one Blue Oyster Cult album. I can't remember if this is the one. I know it has like one big hit on it. We have The Royal Scam by Steely Dan, really going into their jazz fusion era. A lot of people like this album. I'm not a big fan of the jazz fusion, but we have Chicago 10 by Chicago, a decent Chicago album as one of their biggest hits, If You Leave Me Now. First #1 hit for Chicago. And Chicago, which was known for more of a jazz rock band, kind of puts out this incredible ballad by Peter Cetera, and the first time they get a #1 hit. Boston by Boston, one of the greatest debut albums of all time. I mean, More Than a Feeling, what an incredible song on this album. It's definitely a favorite amongst all my friends. We have Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap by AC/DC. Don't know much about that album. I just know I've heard that song before. Songs in the Key of Life, huge album for Stevie Wonder. We'll get into considered one of his best albums. Arrival by ABBA is a pretty good ABBA album. I believe this is the one that has their big hit, Dancing Queen, really big one. They have like 2 big hits off this album. So it's definitely, I said, this is definitely ABBA arriving. That's my little joke, if you got it. We have A New World Record by ELO, my favorite ELO album. Incredible, Telephone Line. Oh my gosh, such a great song. Great overall album, one of my favorites. We have Left Overture by Kansas, which has their first really big hit, Carry On My Wayward Son, which made this one of their biggest albums. Probably their biggest album of all time, to be honest, and most popular album of all time. Night Moves by Bob Seger, so we get Bob Seger starting to come in and put up some really good albums at this time, including this one, Night Moves. The Pretender by Jackson Browne, really good Jackson Browne album, very underrated. I feel like The Pretender, that's such a great song, but it's overall a solid album, I think. Dreamboat Annie by Heart, great Heart album. I know it has, I don't know if it has Crazy on You on it or Barracuda. It has like, or Magic, I think Magic Man might be on here. It has a couple like really big hits on here. And Heart, man, Ann Wilson can really sing, great guitar riffs and everything. Great rock album there. And we have Hotel California by Eagles. One of the Eagles, obviously, huge album with the title song Hotel California, which was one of their biggest hits. This is the first time we have this new lineup with Joe Walsh joining in on guitar with Don Fielder, with everybody else that's there. Really great lineup overall. Great album. I mean, New Kid in Town's amazing as well. And the last album I'm going to mention is A Day at the Races by Queen. Of course, I always mention Queen. It's one of my favorite bands. Day at the Races, absolutely amazing album. One of my favorite of theirs. Somebody to Love, really great hit song off that album. So those are the albums kind of worth noting, I think, of the year that you definitely need to check out if you haven't checked those albums out. Even me, I haven't checked all these albums out, but I know them by reputation. So let's get into what are the top 10 best-selling albums of 1976. Now, we already did a video ranking our favorite albums, me, Scott, Briar, Nick. So you can see that in my playlist about top 10 albums. So we've covered ours anyways, and I talked a little bit about this, but it's interesting. There's a lot of great hits on this top 10 selling albums list, and I actually have a lot of the great hits on here. But we go with #1 best-selling album is Hotel California by Eagles. Like I said, it was their biggest album, huge seller. My favorite Eagles album, personally. It was my #1 favorite album of the year. I'll say that on my list. I'll spoil my list here. So I agree totally with the best-selling album. I thought it was the best album of the year. Absolutely incredible album. And #2, it's their greatest hits, 1971 and 1975 by Eagles. This also was a huge seller, one of the biggest sellers of all time. So Eagles taking the top 2 spots. Eagles definitely in their peak period. They're on top of the world right now. Interesting enough, I think they only make like one more album after this, and then they have a big break and don't make an album until later on. But everybody has this album. It's one of the great hits albums of all time. #3, Boston by Boston. Like I said, this album was huge. One of the biggest debut albums of all time. Has like at least four maybe big hit songs on this album. Like I said, More Than Feeling, probably the biggest one of all, but I think Hitch Your Ride's on here and some other ones. But yeah, really good Boston album. Really great arena rock style album. #4, we have an album I never heard of. I don't know what this is, but it's called Oxygen by Jean-Michel Jarre. Something like that. It sounds very French. That's a weird one to kind of put in here. Number 5, we have Frampton Comes Alive by Peter Frampton. This is obviously one of the biggest live albums. It's Peter Frampton's most popular album, I think. I haven't heard it myself. I don't own it. I believe that's one where, how does it feel and all that. Anyways, and he uses that weird voice modulator thing. Number 6, we have James Taylor's Greatest Hits. I don't believe I own this, though it's something it'd be up my alley for sure. Number 7, we have Best of the Doobie by the Doobie Brothers. I do own this album, actually. Interesting that they make this out when Doobie Brothers still have so much more albums to come out, so many more big hits. And this is before Michael McDonald, I think, or right around the time Michael McDonald joins the group, and then we get a whole new kind of yacht rock kind of Doobie Brothers. 8, Chronicle by CCR. Yeah, this is one of the big, best, greatest hits albums. I have this album. I feel like everybody has this album. It's a great CCR, greatest hits album. Number 9, we have Greatest Hits by Linda Ronstadt. I do own this album on vinyl as well. And it's a pretty decent album. Has my favorite song of hers. A couple of really good songs on there. I don't know Linda Ronstadt real well, and I'm not the biggest fan, but she has some good stuff on there. And we end up the top 10 with Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, AC/DC. So AC/DC really starting to become popular here with their original singer. And I don't know, I've heard, it seems like all this, like Highway to Hell, I know it's coming out later. It seems like I know the title songs of all these albums, but I'm not real familiar with AC/DC until we get to, Back in Black. Anyway, so those are the albums that are selling very well in 1976. So let's talk about what was nominated for the Grammys for Album of the Year and what won. Just kind of go on what was the big albums that were very critically acclaimed. Well, the winner for Album of the Year was Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder, as I mentioned that album before. This is his third Grammy Album of the Year in 4 years. It's one of the most insane runs we've ever seen in the Grammys, where he wins for Intervision, and then he wins for First Something Finale, and then he takes a break, and Paul Simon wins for Still Crazy After All these years. And Paul Simon thanks Stevie Wonder for not putting an album out because he had just won 2 years in a row. So he's like, thankfully, Stevie Wonder didn't make an album, so I won Album of the Year. And then the very next year, Stevie Wonder wins Album of the Year again for Songs in the Key of Life. So Paul Simon wasn't probably far off. It seemed like every time Stevie Wonder put an album out in the early 70s, he won. So definitely everybody was a big fan of everybody voting in the Grammys, big fan of Stevie Wonder. I'm not a big fan of Stevie Wonder's stuff. It's a little too funk and R&B for me. I'm not into that style. But I know my friend Nick really loves this album. I think most people are really into this album. It seems like it was a long album. It feels like this one almost felt like a double album. I can't remember what hit songs are. I know there's a couple hit songs on this album that are very good. I like Stevie Wonder's hit songs. I'm not crazy about his albums. But other nominees, we have Breezin' by George Benson. Don't know that album at all. We have Chicago, Tim at Chicago. Like I said, that was a decent album. Has their biggest song of all time at that point. If You Leave Now, I do own that album. It's a decent album. Frampton Comes Alive by Peter Frampton. Like I said, one of the biggest live albums that ever come out. And then we have Silk Degrees by Bob Scaggs, which I'm not familiar with Bob Scaggs at all. So interesting that got in there as well. So those are the ones. Interesting. I mean, Songs in the Key of Life, it's like, okay, Hotel California obviously should win Album of the Year. I think it has to compete against Rumors the next year and loses against Rumors, if I remember right. So it sucks that Hotel California didn't get a chance to win. It feels like they should have won this year. They were the best-selling album, and it's an incredible album. And like I said, I think it gets nominated. For some reason, I don't get how the Grammys do this, because it came out in 76, but I don't think it got nominated for a Grammy until 77. But then it had to go against Rumors, which was another huge album. Anyway, so it feels like, and Eagles never won an album of the year. It definitely should have been their year. Stevie Wonder already has 2. Why did they give Stevie Wonder a third one? Like, spread out the love a little bit. So I don't know. To me, that was a bit of a mistake. But I mean, it's hard to say. Songs of Key Life is very well beloved. So I guess it's okay. Stevie Wonder won here, even though he won twice before. So, but also they missed out. I mean, Chicago does pretty well. They've been nominated a couple times at this point. The George Benson, Bob Scaggs, weird choices there. Peter Frampton Comes Alive makes sense. That was a popular live album. If I say they missed on anything, I'd say they missed on Boston. That definitely should have been nominated for Album of the Year. And And then, like I said, most of these are special, our best greatest hits albums. I mean, you can look at Station to Station is very popular. Could have gotten in there. Or Taking to the Streets by Doobie Brothers, maybe. Turnstiles by Billy Joel. I mean, there's a couple albums there that probably deserve to be in there more than Arrival. New World Record would have been awesome. Dreamboat Annie. I mean, there's some really great stuff. Day of the Races, all could have gotten in there, but so not a great top 5 there for the Grammys, but none of them would personally be in my list. But I can't be against them. At least I picked somebody that was pretty relevant at the time, Stevie Wonder, and very popular. So that's a good thing, anyways. So I'm going to talk about what was some major music events that happened in '76. So first we got January 5th, the Beatles road manager Mel Evans is shot by police while holding an air rifle. Very sad story about Mel Evans, who was kind of their roadie, the Beatles roadie, was with them from like the beginning, basically as a, I said, roadie / bodyguard / doorman / maybe chauffeur at the time. Really was seemed like a very nice guy that everybody liked, and always had a smile on his face. And yeah, it was just one of those cases where, of course, this long after the Beatles broke up. He actually ended up helping produce like Badfinger or Bad Company, one of those bands. He actually produced an album or something. He got kind of into the music business, and he was actually writing a book at this time about his, time with the Beatles and all that. Unfortunately, his I don't know if it was his wife or his fiance left him. He got super depressed. He was drinking a lot. He got an air rifle and was threatening to like shoot people. And the police showed up, and he pointed the air rifle at the police. Police shot him, and he died. Very sad. March 25th, Jackson Browne's wife, Phyllis, commits suicide. So another sad moment. I didn't know much about Jackson Browne's life. Haven't done a deep dive on him yet. I would love to at some point. But yeah, very sad there for Jackson Browne. April 24th, Lorne Michaels makes an on-air offer to give $3,000 to the Beatles if they reunited on SNL. Very big moment because this is 1 year into SNL, and very funny moment. Lorne Michaels trying to get the Beatles to reunite. He'll offer $3,000. The question is, how are they going to distribute $3,000 once for them? And he said, you can give Ringo nothing if you want, kind of a remark against Ringo, or whatever you want to do. If 3 of you show up, whatever. And there's this interesting what if John, because John and Paul were in New York at the time, and we think maybe they saw that on TV, and I think they did, and I think they said, what if we showed up on Saturday Night Live? Like, that would be huge. Everybody would go nuts. But they decided not to. So I think they did think about it. And so there's like a big, what if they showed up? That would have been really crazy. It would have been one of the greatest moments in Saturday Night Live history to see those two together, because those two hadn't been together since the breakup, and they would never get together again, unfortunately, John and Paul. Later, George does, he's a musical guest, I think, on Saturday Night Live. And so he does have a bit where he wants to claim the $3,000. And Lorne says, well, no, you all 4 have to be here. I just can't give you one the money anyway. So yeah, really funny moment. May 3rd, Paul McCartney and Wings start their tour. It's been 10 years since Paul has toured in America. So the first time Paul and Wings is going to tour in America, of course, in '66, like I said, 10 years before this, '66, the Beatles stopped touring altogether, just were decided to be just a studio band. And so 10 years, Paul McCartney did not do any kind of touring here in America. And now he's got this new band, Wings, and they're putting out this new album, Wings. They put out Wildlife before this, I believe. So I don't know if this is the next one or fairly early on the Wings. Wings at Speed of Sound. And so I know they first went around college campuses and just showed up and said, hey, can we play here? And they're like, well, yeah, of course, you're Paul McCartney. We'd let you play anywhere because it'd get a crowd. So yeah, that was kind of a big deal. And it's funny, he's still at this age, like he's 80 something, and I think he still goes out and tours. And he's been touring for a very long time, obviously. He's had this great solo career, and he loves touring. Even in his old age, he loves touring. It's crazy that he went 10 years without doing it. Now it's like a big thing of his whole career is that he tours all over the place. And I've seen him once here in Wichita, back in 17, I think. Anyway, so one of the greatest moments of my life. But anyways, June 6th, Keith Richards' 10-week-old son dies of respiratory failure. So another sad moment there, this time for Keith Richards. Very young son passing away. June 10th, Alice Cooper collapses and rushed to hospital. His tour is canceled. So yeah, big moment for Alice Cooper. I'm not sure why he collapsed there, I guess, but I'll have to deep dive that at some point. I don't know much about his career either. If he was this was during time when he was really popular, probably. School's Out for Summer probably came out. I'm 18 was popular. See, July 2nd, Brian Wilson performs on stage with Beach Boys for the first time in 3 years. So it must have been pretty cool to see one of the original Beach Boys come back after, of course, we know he had a lot of health issues at this point, a lot of mental health issues. August 31st, U.S. District Court decision rules in favor of George Harrison for My Sweet Lord, sounding like he's so fine. Yeah, My Sweet Lord sounds just like he's so fine. Yeah, that was definitely, I don't know, it was hard, I think, to fight against that. It definitely sounds exactly like it. You get a lot of these through the years. Always somebody writes a song and then someone says, well, that sounds like my song. People are always suing each other, and it's a little silly to me. Come on, like, after a while, songs just start sounding the same. There's just so many songs that can be out there. September 8th, Elton John comes out as bisexual to Rolling Stones. So at this point, we knew Elton John is a heterosexual. He even, I don't know I think he might have been married or he had a female fiance at one point. So it wasn't a big thing at the time, or I don't know if people knew much about it. Obviously, it says he's bisexual, I guess, because he did have a relationship with a female, though we know him more being just straight gay. I don't think he's ever had a relationship with women anymore. But we see that happening with him. Freddie Mercury is going to be coming out at some point. But at this point, people are still kind of keeping it under wraps, being in the closet. September 25th, Bono, The Edge, Adam Clayton, and Larry Mullen form a band called Feedback. And we all know Feedback, one of the greatest bands of all time. Starting here on September 25th in Ireland. I'm kidding, of course, that's U2. U2, that's the beginnings of U2. October 8th, Sex Pistols sign a contract with EMI Records. Sex Pistols, very interesting band, has a very interesting career that I'm going to talk about as we go through each year. Lots of crazy stuff with that band. Very crazy punk rock band, makes one of the big punk rock albums. November 23rd, Thin Lizzy canceled their tour when guitarist Brian Robertson injures hand in bar fight. So, not a good way to cancel your tour because you get into a bar fight. But yeah. Also on November 23rd, Jerry Lee Lewis is arrested after showing up drunk outside Graceland, waving a pistol. So Jerry Lee Lewis obviously had a lot of issues, got canceled there for a little while for marrying his 13-year-old cousin or whatever it was, 15-year-old cousin, very young cousin. Yeah, lots of bad stuff. That was in the 50s. And in 76, I don't know what's going on here. He might have been drunk. But yeah, showing up at Graceland. I'm sure he knows Elvis. I mean, I don't know why he had to show up drunk with a pistol. November 25th, the band gives its last public performance. The band, the name of the band is The Band. Yeah, so last public performance by them. Some big albums from the 60s. Music from Big Pink, The Band, the Brown Album are the two big ones that I know about. Anyway, so I haven't delved into them too much, so I'm wondering what happened there. December 3rd, we have Bob Marley gets shot at his home in Kingston, Jamaica. But he doesn't, I don't believe he dies at this point. I believe he gets like a toe infection later on and passes away. But still, getting shot's not a good thing. All right, so that's the last of the news. I'll end on artists that debuted this year. So here are the big artists that came out in 1976 with their first album. We have Air Supply, Billy Ocean, Blondie, Boston, of course with Boston, Ramones with the Ramones, the first big punk rock album. Tom Petty and Heartbreakers' first album, which I believe is called Tom Petty and Heartbreakers, and Heart with Dreamboat Annie also debuted this year. So some pretty good stuff here. Of course, 76, great year of music, incredible. Like I said, for me, Hotel California, New World Record, Day at the Races, Boston. I mean, you're talking about 4 absolutely amazing 10 out of 10 albums for me. So yeah, of course, 70s is such a great decade overall, and we're gonna have more great music lasting the decade, and lots of. Again, my list that I've made so far with my friends. Last one we did was 1976, so we're ready for 77. As soon as we all get together, hopefully we can do 1977 soon and talk about our favorite albums. Some amazing albums come out in 77 to talk about for sure, including I don't want to spoil my list, but we will see anyway. So, but that's all the news I have for 1976. Hopefully you enjoyed that. You learned a little bit something maybe. Comment of anything I missed maybe, and your favorite albums of 1976, of course. Love to hear your thoughts. And besides that, just thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for liking it. Thank you to all my subscribers for supporting the channel. I appreciate you all. I hope you have a good day.